Hello Teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Pleasure as always to have you here. Now Foodie has come back online. She said a few things. Now she seems to be requesting a review period on some of the things we studied together before, and I am happy to oblige. Now if any of you have forgotten your notes, rather than bring it all into this video and making it ridiculously long, I am going to link down below. I have a playlist of some of the major videos I did on her status with all the receipts on why I didn't believe that her status could be the way it was. And rather than go through all of those again, I will just put them down below. If you would like some background on why I have never believed her to be either married or on a residency, they're all down there for you. And that brings us to now. Now, just for the sake of having everything together, I'm going to insert what Peetz said about her visiting his mom here.
Oh, well, that, she's just, hopping to another country. Like, when she was here, one time we hung out, she also, stopped in at my mom's, and she explained to my mom that, she pops over to Saudi Arabia. But basically, she just pops across the border a couple days while her visa renews.
I do realise that we've talked about that before, but I just wanted it there so that in the future, when she starts to try and erase everything, we've got everything together. Now, Foodie had some questions for me/us, because she does tend to view one reactor as all reactors. I have cut bits and pieces out of the Addressing Peetz live. It's entirely possible I've missed bits, but I've just put it together in a way that serves the point I want to talk about. So it's currently 8:37 here, and I've got to get to bed. So recording this and editing it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm trying to shorten it down. If she said anything about me later in the stream, I have not seen it. Most of the information I need for my purposes was nearer the beginning. But first, let's take a look at a few of the questions she has.
I would like to know from reaction channels that make such a big, or people who follow them. I want to know seriously. I'm not raging. I want to know on a serious, calm level, what gives you the right to be invasive and know my visa status? Number one question for you. Number two, how does this affect your life in any way? Number three, when did reacting it went from reacting to videos to being invasive in my personal life? I'd like to know that. On a serious level, I would like to know that in your next videos, because there's this drama going around that Peetz apparently said some things, probably not realizing that it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. So those were Foodie's questions. I would consider question 3 and question 1 kind of the same, but it was a big deal. And she knows why it was a big deal. She spent the first part of the video trying to pretend like the tea was the fact that Peetz had said, oh, she can't afford a ticket home. She was like, yeah, it's really expensive. I can't believe you think that's important. And we're like, honey, that is not what we are focusing on. But as Foodie did manage to remain calm for the approximately 2 minutes this clip is from, I believe at the very least she deserves an answer. Now, to start off, in terms of invasiveness, I believe it's completely true that some reactions, some reactors, some community members, they get too deeply entrenched. I would not disagree with her on that. But the fact is, she has been lying to her entire audience about this since the beginning. Since the very beginning. So when you say, well, why does it concern you? Because I'm an audience member as well. Because you're building your channel around what you're doing here, and you've brought your personal life into your channel. Because I am a reactor. I can only react to what she shows us. So when you put community posts up with you in a wedding ring saying, we're married, a day or so after you get to Kuwait, when you try and gaslight us into believing that you've got medical insurance, or when you're trying to say, oh no, I could be sponsored like this, then that invites comment if you know enough about what's going on to be able to comment. And I'm sure the first response there would be, well, you don't know. You don't know. I have enough experience with visas even if I haven't had a Kuwaiti visa, to be able to say, hey, that doesn't seem like it would make sense with all my experience I have. And funnily enough, the majority of the community that have got any of that experience also say, hey, that don't make sense. And let's not forget, the last time I brought this up and Foodie got angry at me and was like, prove it, prove it. Well, darling, here comes the paperwork. You invited me to talk about it. I was permitted to anyway. It's not something she gets to give permission for. I don't have to request it in writing. But Chantal specifically asked for proof, and I provided the paperwork attached to it and my own personal experience explaining how the paperwork generally goes. Might there be small differences between Oman and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait? Potentially, but there's a quite large amount of commonality as well. And some of the things that she was talking about, she wasn't experienced enough with the process to know that they were quite glaring errors. So when you say, why does it matter? It matters because you made it matter. It matters because you presented it this way. You just don't like the fact that some of us do have the experience to say, really? Let's look at that. So I've just got another small clip, again, just so we have it here for when she deletes it later, of her actually admitting the border hopping so that we can move on with that conversation.
As for the border hopping, at one point, yeah. Number one, I'm not going to talk about my visa status. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything because literally it's no one's business. I don't know where the one up is in saying, oh yeah, we were right. Who cares even if it was true? Who cares what visa I'm on here? You can't just come here. At first, yeah, it was a tourist visa and I would border hop somewhere sometimes. Yes, of course. So what? What's your point? I don't know what, like, can you please tell me what the tea is? You don't just come here and get a visa. It's hard. I used to border hop, yes. Now, I'm not telling you.
So the I'm not telling you is something we will clearly go into in a moment when we look at the updates to the visas. But just to make it completely clear, Chantal has admitted that she did border hop, and she used the plural, so she did it a few times. I don't believe, for the record, that anything has changed. I think she's still on a tourist visa, and we'll talk about why. But just take a moment to see how hard she's trying here. Well, of course we border hop. It's not a secret. It's been a secret for an entire year. It was, in fact, the only secret she had on channel. She had medical records, she had infidelity, like very detailed infidelity information. She had her leg issues, she had her diabetes, she had her huffing and puffing around the mall and the other places. Anything that people might think, hey, that seems a bit personal, she had online, except for this. Because the marriage certificate and the attached visa status, oh, that's the thing we're going to keep private amongst everything. But what else can she do really at this point? This is her desperately trying to save face. And it's not the kind of thing that's going to work. Like at this point, you just have to take the L, you know? Because Peetz threw in a hand grenade over here. Like he blew this up. And so the only thing she's got now, because she can't do anything else, is to try and minimize the impact of, well, of course this is what was happening. Like, she's never come on and raged at people. Like, she didn't spend an hour making fun of my cheap wig and my makeup and my accent, rather than address the information that I had put in. And now here we are. So why does it matter? It matters because the general larger sense of, you know, that you being on a tourist visa means, or confirms, that you're not married and therefore don't have the status that you've been saying and therefore are living illegally in this apartment. Now, the only grey area that comes there, we have talked before about her marriage and the idea of a temporary marriage coming up. So married enough to stay together, but not enough to form any kind of legal basis if they needed it for like immigration. So maybe they have a temporary marriage, maybe they have whatever contract so they can stay together in this way. although there has been talk about where he's been. But it's certainly not going to be something that they can go get authenticated by the embassy and use as a basis for future happiness. Now, before we go into the details of all that, we'll just go through the clips where she mentioned me specifically, because again, she seemed a little confused as to what she wanted from me. So hopefully we can clarify that and all move on together. I might actually put this one up in the corner because it is slightly longer. I think I got it down to like 3-4 minutes. I'll double check it, but because it goes back and forth a bit because it was chopped from different parts, then it's easier to react to it like that. If I missed any parts, apologies. Like I said, I'm trying to skip through so we can get to the paperwork.
For example, they've recently changed the rules where you can have a family visa here now.
We will talk about it, friends.
It depends on a lot of things. You have to have a certain amount of money and all this and that. Not like an unreasonable amount, but there's like criteria.
It's like 800 Kuwaiti dinar, which I think is about $2,600 USD. So not an unreasonable amount if you're a skilled worker in Kuwait. Certainly you would expect your salary to be that. But we do not know Salah's education level. We do know he's got a position of some kind in the perfume business, and we know that he was working a retail job before that. So to me, that says he doesn't have specific skills in a certain field. It's more like retail based, but because he is a resident, but we don't know the details as to how he became a resident, we're not quite sure in that way. Like there was talk about him potentially being a refugee or what have you. So the circumstances under which he entered the country might be different from the expectations they have of it today.
And Salah fits the criteria. So I'm just saying, like, they've changed things for family visas. I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. I'm not saying it's not.
And why bring it up?
What I'm doing. I'm not telling you on purpose. Like, I don't want that private information to be told for people to exploit it for views because they have nothing.
We have quite a lot. That's why you don't want to say anything, because you've already said too much, or Peetz has said too much, which has allowed us to pull together all the threads that we already really knew, but man, the confirmation is satisfying. On nothing else but a petty level, the confirmation is satisfying because I've never believed her. And being able to say, hey, because all that stuff that you said with your whole chest and how I didn't know what I was talking about and you didn't even believe I lived in the Middle East, and even if I did, I don't live in Kuwait, and how dare you, I suddenly vindicated. And it feels good. And if I'm looking awfully smug about it, it's because I am.
Hey, don't say I lied, because I purposely was vague.
Yep, that's a form of lying. But don't worry, she's going to go into more detail.
I would say, yes, no, on purpose.
Mm-hmm. We know.
So that's that. That's the tea. That's the cold
She just spat at us.
tea that's not going to go anywhere.
This tea is not cold, madam. This tea is nice and toasty warm, like a relaxing bath at the end of the day.
And whenever I was telling Peetz's mom that, it meant when I was doing that.
So now. Remember, she was in Canada in like December, January. She had followed the timelines for leaving every 3 months because she did later admit during that time period where we were like, hey, she's offline, visa run, it's the time for a visa run, that she had gone to Qatar and not told any of us, even though she's told us now. So, hey, suddenly public knowledge. And then they were in Thailand for quite a while. And then before that visa could run out, she wants to go to Canada for her health. So when she arrived in Canada, she had no intention initially of coming back to Kuwait. So she had no reason to lie. She, as far as she was concerned, wasn't going to need another visa. She may as well be honest. And when she came back, it was also unexpected because it was as a result of the huge Poopgate saga that Salah caused. So she ran out of there January 3rd to get back to her husband's side and check every one of his phones. And that was to the point where she didn't even wait for her packages of like clothes from the sales. Remember, she said her mom was going to have to send them back. So even if she had gone home with the intention of getting certain paperwork sorted, because we are going to talk about the paperwork that she's not exempt from, she still needs, she wouldn't have had time to complete it because it already takes quite a long time. The holiday season would have made it slower, and she had no plan in place in terms of going and coming back and the timeline of it. For most of that trip, she was like, I'm staying permanently. Oh, it's hard and stuff. Oh, Salah's tried to have an affair and I'm running straight back to Kuwait. She can't have planned around that. So the chances of things having changed since her coming back from Canada are extremely low, especially when you consider the date that all these changes were made, which we'll go into in a sec.
At one point I was. Yeah, so it's no secret.
It was a big
By the
secret.
way, you have to also leave the country to come back in with a new status.
Yeah, you do. That's not proving your point, it's proving mine. You didn't have the timeline or the intention at the time to go through the necessary paperwork to bring that back. This was quite the freeze frame, sorry. Some of the paperwork you would need comes from your home embassy. You haven't been out since. So whatever you think you're proving here, you are not proving.
So womp womp, you really found out nothing.
Keep saying it, maybe it will be true. Just hold on to it. You say it enough, people forget, I promise. It's the internet, nothing lasts forever. She's just desperately hoping she can gaslight us into believing it.
And even if you did, who cares? Like, I don't see how that makes any...
I am happy to sit here and say I care. With all the water under the bridge, I care that I was right. It's nice. It's nice to be right. But she gets increasingly aggressive with her fork as she goes. She gets angrier and angrier about it. She clearly cares a lot. There's no dismissing that, however much you try to.
Any difference to anyone's life. 100%. They're taking his words and yeah, like, so what? Like I told his mom, like, oh, well, yeah, whenever you're on a tourist visa, if you want to come back, you have to border hop, of course. But that might not be the case now, for all you know. It's not.
Okay, so no one twisted his words. It was exactly what it sounded like, and what you're relying on right now is something might have changed since January. We'll talk about it.
Not anyone's business, you know? Milk tea hides behind a British accent, but she's sneakily the most nasty reactor.
That's me. International woman of mystery. It's always the ones you least expect. Clearly no one in the audience is able to make their own judgment. To be fair, I am full troll at the minute. I think I'm having a lot more fun watching this than Foodie was filming it, let's just say.
Yeah, she's something else.
What,
exactly?
right?
She sits there like this, like... My God, she's leaning on the fridge. And?
Yeah.
What's your point?
That was exactly my point. I said it to you. I wasn't hiding anything there, darling. You wouldn't be accent shaming me though there, darling, would you? You might hurt my feelings.
Basically, I went to his mom's house for a visit, to visit her. I was saying, she was asking, like, basically I was talking about, like, how I would, like, used to border hop. Like, you know.
Trying really hard to get that in the past tense. I just want to make sure again, I know she just said it, but she was very concerned with Mr. Snowflake of us using her words. So here we are.
Basically, if you're on a tourist visa, you can only stay for 9 days, so you have to leave the country and come back.
90 days, but I think that's what you meant.
With another tourist visa. And then, they think this is like a huge victory, that they know that they did something, you know?
Well, technically Peetz did it, but we're enjoying it nonetheless. It can be mutually beneficial.
What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that you lie about it. So what? It's not your business.
You made it our business. Is it on your public channel that you gave to us? Your mistake was assuming we were stupid enough to believe you. And now that mistake's bitten you on the ass.
Well, the big deal is that you lie about it. So what? It's not your business. If I
Yeah,
want to
it
be
is.
big,
If somebody lies to me, it is totally my business.
if I want to change things, if I want to say something to mislead you, that's not your business, especially, and I've even said that.
You saying it doesn't make it right. Hey, if I want to rewrite my history and I want to purposely mislead you, you don't get to have a problem with that. It's none of your business. Well, if not ours, whose? We're the ones you're lying to.
They haven't traveled. They sit there on their butt, judging me over things they know nothing about.
If you've ever heard the call to prayer in my video, you should know that it was definitely a trick. I am definitely not in Oman. It is definitely not the result of a lifetime of international teaching. The vlogs I have on the other channel where I've gone around into like stores and stuff, complete fabrication. The times you've seen me in my abaya, nothing. The series of videos I have over on Milk Tea Chilled, I have like a series of 3 about working abroad, complete lie. This is definitely not the 8th or 9th country that I've lived in my life, and I definitely haven't had to get visas for all of them. Just don't concern yourself. No experience in this.
You look dumb wasting your time, Milk Tea, raging on Twitter, looking up rules that you know nothing about.
She told me to Google them. Actually, did I put that clip in? I don't know.
You don't live here. You don't live here. Google Kuwait visa laws 2024. Family visa. Anyway, you Googled the rules about marriage. They're not on there. It didn't apply to us.
She did at one point tell me, Google it. She was like, Google it. Google family visa Kuwait. I have done, darling. I have. We'll get into it right now. What she's angry about, what she's clinging to here, is that I was watching this live, and when she was like, hey, Google it, I went and Googled it, and I was like, hey, here are the rules on Twitter. Here you go, if you insist. And now, for some reason, she's angry I did. Clearly, I was raging. I wasn't enjoying this immensely.
You're wrong about, just like the marriage. She's not married at all. Look at the rules.
Oh, something as insignificant as international immigration rules. No, it's much more plausible that the way you did it was all loopholey and not on Google. Especially now you've admitted that for at least every time except the last month you've been on a tourist visa. I love this freeze frame of her. I think this is perfect for her personality. But especially now you've admitted that you were in fact on several tourist visas and therefore couldn't be married. Now, I'm not talking about the temporary marriage that kind of lets you have sex while getting around the morality rules. You might have done that. That might be keeping a roof over your head right now. It might be something else. It might be that your name is on the lease. It might be you're paying someone to get in there and just look the other way. We don't know. These things happen. Have you done any of them? We don't know. You are in the building and thus far have not been kicked out, even though you did move twice in quite quick succession with no explanation. So excuse me, if now having confirmed all the other stuff I said wasn't happening, that I might believe that my initial instinct that, I don't think your marriage is going to stand up legally anywhere in terms of immigration, because that is what I believe.
Then you know the rules that we would not be able to live together here if we weren't, right? And you think with the amount of haters I have that I would admit to living with somebody, they could easily come knock at our door and check it out.
I think you are banking really hard on if you say this loud enough, people will assume that it's true and it's not worth bothering. I don't think people should be doing that. I would much rather see this fizzle out under your own power as you stand in your haze of rage. And if you beat your chest hard enough, if you scream it loud enough, people will believe you. And then over time, you'll be able to rewrite this little pocket of history, as you have tried to do with many things. You are mistaking being loud with being right. And you can't gaslight me into believing that. And if I haven't changed my mind yet, I'm not going to do it anytime soon.
So? Wrong again.
When you say again, could you please point to the other time I was wrong? Because you have just confirmed the things I said.
Breaking news, Foodie Beauty, I'm Googling now. I'm going to go on Twitter.
Yep. I have in fact Googled, I do have the paperwork, I did put it on Twitter, and you asked me to. So I'm not sure why you're mad about it now.
She's not a resident, everybody.
It's true. I don't need your hamster face to know it. It's true. Congratulations. I don't think we can give you full credit for being honest, as you're trying to just mock it enough so that people laugh how ridiculous along with you. But I did actually bring the receipts in my last series of videos, and I am in fact bringing the receipts right now. Shall we look at them?
Like, what is that? How does that affect your life? Who gives AF if you're married or not? Who gives AF if you're border hopping or not?
The police. The Kuwaiti government. Your debtors back in Canada when you have to go back. You have got so much to lose. You've got so much to lose. You were going to stay in Canada and you got there and freaked out over how hard it was because rents have shot up sky high. You were going to have to share with Peetz, who didn't seem too keen, and you didn't want to sort it. You think I'm doing anything but laughing? You think of the two of us. It's my problem. Darling.
How boring is your existence if you're that much about... Exactly. How boring is there? Exactly. That's always my point. Oh, just a boring reaction channel. Because they live in the Middle East, they think they know everything, all the rules about everybody.
I don't know all the rules about everybody. I know the most common rules about the most common things, which is apparently more than she does. But I am willing to Google. As I said, the previous stuff is in the previous videos, so let's just look at what kind of requirements there are for Kuwait and the family visa in 2024. Now, I'm taking these from some agents that work with people who are trying to get visas, so these have come from their updates on the website. If I remember, I will try and link it down below. If not, it might be on screen somewhere. We'll see what I remember. So the following are 4 basic requirements that must be met for the Kuwait family visa in 2024. Now, there is a similarly named family visit visa. That works a little bit like a tourist visa, where you get sponsored in by your family for a short amount of time, but it essentially replaces the tourist visa if you're from a country where they won't issue tourist visas. It's just a little harder to get because someone has to sponsor you, but it's plausible. So, employment status, minimum salary, accommodation, health insurance, educational qualification, and relevant employment. Additionally, all applicants must produce the following documents: passport, work permit, salary certificate, accommodation proof, marriage certificate, birth certificate, health insurance papers, photographs. The photographs will just be like passport photos. Now, what you've got to realize here is that these are the requirements for Salah, not for Foodie. He would be the sponsor here, and therefore he would have to prove these things, because essentially when you're a sponsor, you're saying, I will take the responsibility for this person, and therefore you have to put the proof out. It's like being a guarantor, essentially. So, effective January 28th, 2024, Kuwait has significantly expanded the scope of eligibility for family visas, and now includes the spouses and children of a wide range of skilled foreign nationals residing in Kuwait, subject to education and minimum salary requirements. They had initially closed these down, and then they opened them for medical professionals because a ton of people they actually needed for skills they actually wanted in the country quit because they couldn't bring their family over. Now, the interesting point here is the date, effective January 28th. As I sit here, it is February 28th. So it's only been a month since this came into effect, and Foodie has not been in Canada in that time. Now, although Salah has to prove all of this stuff, Foodie still has to meet the minimum requirements for being a resident as a spouse or anything else, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The other key word here is skilled foreign nationals, because some of the changes they've made are basically to try and lock out the less skilled and just say the only people putting the pressure on our system are the people who are highly paid because they've increased it and fill specific fields that we have shortages in. We want skills we can't give to homegrown talent. So let's take a look here. Eligibility. Foreign nationals residing in Kuwait can now apply for a family residence visa on behalf of their spouse and any of their children below the age of 18, providing the principal applicant has these things. Principal applicant is Salah. Submits a university level degree which corresponds to their field of work in Kuwait. I don't know if Salah has a university level degree, because as I said, we're not quite sure how he came into the country, what his status was there, if he was a refugee, what have you. So the allowances made for him coming into the country may not be the current expectations. If you are part of certain professions like engineering, media, medicine, higher education roles, people they want to be able to increase the skill level in their population, they will waive the degree. Has a minimum salary of at least 800 KD, which is approximately 2,600 USD, up from 550 KD, which was the minimum salary level prior to the program's suspension in 2022. However, subject to the approval of the Director General of the General Administration of Residence Affairs, this minimum salary requirement may be waived when the principal applicant is applying on behalf of a dependent child aged 0 to 5 and both parents. The principal applicant and their spouse are residing in Kuwait. So if you've already got your family, you just need to get your kid out, they're going to say, look, don't worry about it. You're already here. You're already resident. Bring your child. Now, $2,600 is not a bad salary. I teach right now, and depending on the exchange rate from my salary, I have like 1,300 Omani Rial, just over. And that tends to equal about 2,700-ish pounds. So a little bit more than the dollars, maybe 3,000 or so dollars. But I have a lot of disposable income with that. Now, situations vary, but it is the salary level of a skilled worker. So if you were doing a job, because, you know, Salah had the retail job and things, it might be a struggle without a skilled job to get to that level of income. Obviously, things are a little shady with the perfume business. We don't know what position he holds or what his salary is. Foodie is claiming he meets the requirements. I'm not inclined to believe what Foodie says, just as a matter of principle. Limits. So principal applicants, other family members, including parents and siblings, are currently not eligible. That doesn't really matter. Validity. The family residence visa is a renewable multiple entry visa that allows dependents to reside in Kuwait for up to 3 years. I'm not sure, when it says a renewable visa, you might be able to renew it up for 3 years, but usually they'll make you go in every year to do so. That might not be the case with this new one, or I don't know if 3 years is just in one shot. I know for me, because of the medical things attached to it and the health insurance and things, I have to go have a medical and renew every year, even if my contract was longer. My first contract, this one I'm finishing now, is 2 years, but I still had to renew after a year, even though I had that contract. Work rights. The family residence visa does not provide work rights. Instead, in order to work, family residence visa holders must obtain a separate work permit or residence permit under the employer's sponsorship. So if she ever became a legal resident and she got another job, her sponsorship would then be the responsibility of her employer. She would no longer be sponsored as a dependent because she would need the right to work, which would come from an employer. So she would have to get that transferred over. Processing. The standard government processing time for this visa is approximately 3 to 5 business days. However, given potentially high current demand for this visa, processing times may be temporarily longer. I would be very shocked if you were able to get that in 3 to 5 business days, particularly because of some of the things that we're going to talk about later and the fact that applications would be up at the moment. And for the application process, family residence visa applicants must first enter Kuwait on an entry visa and then have 2 months to complete the family residence visa process. That's actually what Foodie was trying to talk about there, where you have to leave and come back in on the correct thing. I had to do the same. I had to have an entry visa for an approved reason, and then I had to go and have the medical and put some paperwork in to get the actual official Igama, the residency permit. Because if they fail the medical, they're not getting the permit. Not that that would ever be relevant to Chantal. Now, Foodie would need a medical check, and she would need to pass that check in order to stay in Kuwait. So even if she got all of this sorted, she would still need to do that, which she doesn't have much hope of passing. Also, part of what Salah has to do is prove their marriage. Now, if she doesn't have, for example, when we talked about paperwork she could have gotten in Canada if she planned her timeline, she'll need a certificate, which she doesn't have now because she's been on tourist visas this whole time, saying that she's not married in Kuwait, and that's got to be verified by our home embassy. And Salah, as a Syrian national, has to have the marriage certificate authenticated by the Syrian embassy in his home country. So it's a lot more complicated than it looks. In terms of the documents they need to show, the salary certificate, it's not enough to say, oh, look, this money is going into my account and therefore I make enough. So if Foodie was sending money over and he could show, look, I get this much every month, it wouldn't count. You need it from your employer. So if he's working at the perfume business, he would need it from the perfume business. And it would be like his contracted amount. But Foodie expects us to believe that this has all been sorted within 28 days, having flown from Canada in a rush over the holiday period after not planning on coming back at all, with apparently all the paperwork she needs. I very much doubt it. Additional to this, there has been a news article in the Gulf News. Kuwait rejects 1,165 applications for family visas. I believe this was from the 7th of February. I'd have to double check it. Kuwait's General Administration of Residence Affairs at the Ministry of Interior has rejected 1,165 applicants for family visas on the first day of the implementation of the new regulations. Of the 1,800 applications received by Departments of Residency Affairs across the country's 6 governorates, only 635 have been approved. A total of 1,165 applications were rejected because they failed to meet the stipulated conditions. So it's not like they're playing fast and loose with this, they're being quite strict. Kuwait recently introduced major adjustments in the rules regarding obtaining residency visas for family members. And that's just detailing the salary has gone up to 800 KD, a university degree and a profession relevant to the visa application. And then it tells you the decision was made after numerous employees from the Ministries of Health, Justice and Education resigned because their families are not residing with them in the country. They don't care about Chantal being happy and staying here. They care about the skilled workers that they need to fulfill their ministry positions. That is why these changes are being made. And they've put up the salary requirement to try and make sure, I would guess, that the benefit is felt only within that skilled worker area. And that's where I am with this. Salah won't have done this. The chances of it being processed anyway are quite low, given that the majority of applicants have been rejected. Foodie doesn't have any of her requirements, like the certificate proving she's not married at home, her police clearance certificate, which I needed, maybe she wouldn't need for the sake of the fact that she doesn't have a job. And it's very unlikely that even if she got into the country under all of those things, with all of that paperwork, that she would pass the embassy accredited clinic medical check. So in short, I say, after an hour of recording, this changes nothing. She still doesn't meet a lot of the requirements, and it hasn't been open long enough for it to have impacted her anyway, which means she has spent a year hopping on tourist visas, unmarried in anything but the temporary contract marriage way, which might be enough for her to skate by in Kuwait, but isn't going to lead her anywhere. And I am perfectly happy for her to rage about the fact that she has absolutely nowhere to hide with what Peetz has put out. And there we are. So thank you so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure, and we will see where Foodie goes with this next. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.